Is this on? There we go. Good morning, everyone. I think everybody's back from the breakfast line, so if you need a beverage refresher, feel free to do that as we go. Want to welcome you here this morning to the Profiles Breakfast. I'm Greg Myers. I'm the Executive Director for the Growth Partnership for Ashtabula County, and I will be your MC this morning for this panel discussion. So the way that we're going to do this discussion this morning, I think this is going to be sort of a best of the county approach or state of the county approach with respect to topics of education, agribusiness, and issues of social service. So we have a great panel here this morning, and I will then kind of guide the conversation and provide some closing remarks and wrap them into how all of these services have a direct impact on what we do in the economic development world. So why don't we, in terms of some ground rules for how we'll do this, we're going to have each speaker talk about their area of expertise, and then we'll save questions until the end. So we'll leave 15 minutes or so for questions at the end. So with that, we'll get going. So we have with us today John Rubisech, who is with the Education Service Center. So John, thank you very much. And I should say thank you for being here because you're close to retirement, as I understand, maybe a day or two away even. So
actually 3 months from today.
Oh, 3 months from today. Okay, so it probably feels like a day or two away. So, but certainly recognizing that, I want to thank you for your service and all that you've done here in the county throughout the years and wish you well in retirement. So thank you very much. So why don't we give John a round of applause for his service, please. And on that is I understand Mike Candela will be taking your place, your helm? Okay. I don't, is Mike is here today. I don't know if he's in the crowd. Not? Okay. But good. Just wanted to mention that. So, again, thank you for your service and for being here today. And then to his left, we have Andrew Holden, who is with the Ohio OSU Extension Office for Agribusiness. So thank you very much. And a new face, actually. We're juxtaposing now. We have a new face coming into town, about 7 months ago. So welcome to Ashtabula County, and I'm sure you'll talk a little bit about your background, and that'll be of keen interest, I think, to everybody here to understand where you're from, and wanted to offer a welcome. Glad to have you here. And to his left, I think most of you probably know Mr. Paul Bellino, who is the CEO for Community Counseling. So happy to have Paul here talking about some critical issues of mental health and other social service impacts that certainly have a direct effect on all the topics here today and on the economic development world. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to John to jump into his piece.
Thank you. Good morning. What I'd like to do is take a few minutes and tell you a little bit about the Ashtabula County Educational Service Center. When you use the terminology Ashtabula County Educational Service Center, many people really don't know what it is and what we do. But when you say that, if you recall having the County Board of Education in many counties, people will say, oh, I remember that. Our name has changed over the years. We've morphed a little bit, but our mission is still the same. Really what we do for our member districts, and in Ashtabula County we have 7 school districts. We have 3 city school districts and 4 local school districts. They are all members of the Ashtabula County Educational Service Center. What we do is provide shared services for all of our member districts. If a district needs a part-time school speech pathologist, what we do typically is, well, what Tina Ray does, she'll go out and she'll job hunt for that person, bring a person in, I should say, and hire a full-time speech pathologist, and then actually sell their services to districts that need that person. We operate many special education programs throughout the county. We have autistic programs in this county. We run a program called Building Bridges, which is a big program for us. We have about 60 to 70 students in that program. grades K through 12. Prior to having that program in the county, and it's been in existence for about 10 years, students who were emotionally disturbed were actually bused out of county to Lake County. The cost of that at that time, 10 years ago, $40,000 per student for the educational component. Transportation was about $15,000 per student. We're doing that in county now for about $22,000 per student, saving the districts and the taxpayers money there. We have a lot of professional development that we do with teachers throughout the county. We oversee the LPDC committee, which is it's like CEUs for teachers, making sure that they get the certification that they need. ESCs have been in existence for over 100 years, and actually our establishment is through law, through the Ohio Revised Code. The other thing I do want to mention is, about a year ago, we started the process of forming a consortium to provide the services for the Happy Heart school-age students. That was a huge component for us to take on, but it's well within our wheelhouse. And I would tell everybody here, any people, any business people in the county, if you're having a tough day at the office, give us a call. Come over to the ESC campus on West 13th Street. We'll give you a tour of the Happy Hearts building. It'll wash all your problems away. To see the kids, what they're doing, it's extremely heartwarming to see what's happening over there. And I'd be remiss in saying that, you see my name tag, that on May 7th, get out there and vote for issue 2. We appreciate all the support. Let me tell you a little bit about what's going on in the county. Countywide, in our public schools, we have about 14,000 students. In our public schools, they're making a difference every day in the lives of our students. The education system in Ashtabula County is made stronger through our partnerships. Our partnerships include, first of all, it begins with the parents and caregivers. They have the greatest impact on child development. Business leaders and employers, you help build strong schools. And you do this through asking for statewide changes, asking what students should know, or telling us what students should know and what they should be able to do. Laws are being made because of your commitment to our legislature, asking them to pass laws that will improve what you need in your workforce. We're also very fortunate to have social services and community organizations that support health and the needs of our children. We have philanthropic groups in our county that invest in our schools and support high-quality education. Public education has changed drastically from the time that you went to school. I wanted to make sure I phrased that properly. Really, we're focused right now from what they call cradle through careers. You know, we focus on early childhood education extensively to make sure that kids are prepared and ready to come to school. We are facing some complex issues in education today. There are inequities in education achievement, also referred to as the achievement gap. School districts in this county are continuously trying to shorten those gaps in achievement. We also have to deal with social and emotional development of our vulnerable children. You know, in years past, it was just teaching the writing, reading, arithmetic. Today, in many schools, we're actually raising children during the course of the school day. We have mental health counselors that are in our buildings, and Paul in community counseling, they do a great job with our students. Even, we were talking about this earlier, even the Governor DeWine has realized that we need more mental health counseling in our schools. In the budget that he has proposed to the legislature, he has set aside money for mental health counseling for each school district in the state of Ohio. It's not enough. The amount that he put in is about $50,000 per school district. But we'll take anything that we can get if it's going to help students, especially with mental health. We're also trying to determine what the future workforce is going to look like. You know, when you start looking at artificial intelligence and how that's going to interact with the workforce, you know, we need to be involved with that, trying to make sure that we can provide the best educated students for you in your workforce. I would tell you this, when you're looking for your next generation workforce, those people are in our schools right now. Any superintendent in this county will welcome you coming into their schools, looking and interviewing the next workforce in our county. I would also tell you that when you're going into the schools and you're talking to the students, look at their permanent record. Ask for the permanent record file. The student can give that to you. The parent can give that to you. If students are missing 30 to 40 days of school a year, they're going to miss 30 to 40 days in the workforce. You know, we need to talk to the students at a younger age, making sure that they understand those are things that employers are looking at so they can gain employment in the workforce. School districts today in Ashtabula County are offering students more opportunities today. Our schools have increased college visits, especially for younger students, taking them to local colleges and universities, exposing them to the campus life. Our schools are partnering with local businesses, and they facilitate what's called manufacturing days. Some of you are probably involved with that with local schools. Is that I'm up? My time's up? These are the things that we're dealing with on a daily basis, not only in our schools, but in our society. Getting back to this, what I like to say, there are teachers in many of our smaller school districts who are teaching between 3 and 5 preparations a day. That's unheard of. And the reason they're doing that is to afford students more opportunities to take more coursework. Students are exposed to the world through staff instruction. But here we are today. It's May 1st. We have seniors who are getting ready, geared up for graduation, determining what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. Are they going to go to post-secondary education? Are they going to look at careers? Are they going to go into the military? What I would tell you is, you know, there are issues within the education community that we need to focus on, we need to deal with head on. But I would also like to leave you with this message. Students who are graduating today in Ashtabula County are going on to some of the best colleges and universities in the nation. And that's one of the things that we're most proud of as well. Thank you.
John, thank you very much. Just to follow up on the announcement that you heard, so Dean Stocker obviously had to leave. She just asked that we stay in place until officials come in and let us know that everything is all clear. So appreciate your patience with that. Not making light of that situation at all, but I think, you know, one of the things that it's important on the education side and that's critical to economic development is that, you know, what did you say, birth to graduation sort of process that the education institutions in the county are going through right now. That is critical to our ability to succeed. Whether that's kids that are going off to college or staying here, it's critical that we have resources in place, not only to teach them the basic skills educational skills they need to know, but to deal with some of the social issues that these kids are facing. You know, in light of the announcement that we had today, it's a very different environment. So teaching, I think, is very different today, and we give them a lot of kudos for the work that they do in addressing all of those areas. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to talk to us about what's happening in the agribusiness sector. This is certainly one of the larger sectors in our local economy, so, and I don't know that it gets the love it needs, but I appreciate Andrew being here and talking to us about that because it has a tremendous impact on our economic health and success. So thank you. Andrew.
Morning. So, like it was mentioned, I'm fairly new in my position. I've been in extension for about 7 months now. I'm not actually new to Ashtabula County. I was born and raised in Pierpont, Ohio, on a dairy farm. And though we sold the cows in 2015, we're still active grain and hay farmers in Pierpont. So I am very, I wouldn't say I'm very, but I'm experienced in agriculture in Ashtabula County and have done it most of my life. So going off of John's point about preparing kids for their careers and getting kids to come back to Ashtabula County, I went to Ohio State and received my degree in agribusiness and agronomy, and I wanted to come back to Ashtabula County. It was my goal long term. I love the county, I love the area. I wanted to come back and I wanted to be able to help people in our county. So when this position opened up, it was a perfect fit for me to teach people about agriculture and assist our producers in our county. Excuse me. Agriculture is such a big sector of business in Ashtabula County. I believe it's the second or third largest sector in Ashtabula County. As of 2017, it was a $58 million market value of agricultural products sold in Ashtabula County. And in this position as an educator, one of my goals is to teach the children of Ashtabula County about all the possible careers that agriculture provides. So when I was asked to do a profile of agriculture in Ashtabula County, luckily the 2017 USDA census was just released in agriculture, and that's done by the National Agricultural Statistics Service. And the census provides valuable insights into the demographics, the economics, the land use, and the activities on U.S. farms and ranches. So I want to give you guys a little brief introduction on what it looks like nationally, and then we can go into the county and see how our county compares to the nation and the trends that we're seeing in our county right now in agriculture. So in 2017, there was just over 2 million farms in the United States. That's down about 3% from 2012. So the average size is up to 441 acres, and that is done on 900 million acres of land. So what's that? So that's telling us that there are less farms and the average size of the farm is increasing. You may see it in the news or you may notice it, but there are less and less small farms in the nation, and that means that the average size of the farm is going up and it continues to go up. In Ashtabula County, we have 1,212 farms as of 2017, and that is actually up from 2012. We've gained about 113 farms. So contrary to the national average, Ashtabula County is actually gaining farms, and the average size of the farm in Ashtabula County has decreased in that 5-year span of about 20 acres. So even though we are seeing a national trend of smaller farms or larger farms and less amount of farmers, in Ashtabula County we have recently added more farmers. Another issue that agriculture is facing is just over 100,000 of the farms in the nation produce 75% of all sales in agriculture. So the gap between these large industrial farms and the small farmers continues to grow. Like I mentioned earlier, Ashtabula County has produced over $58 million in agricultural products in 2017. And our average net income in 2017 is $5,000. That is, we can attribute that to the prices that we are facing in the dairy industry and in the grain industries, compared to 2012 when the net cash income was over $22,000 per farm. That being said, on a national standpoint, only about 43% of farms had a positive net cash income in 2017. So that really attests to the struggles that we are facing in the agricultural community nationwide. I saw the other day that agricultural producers only earn about 13 cents on the dollar for the products that they sell. So that definitely has something to do with the amount of positive net cash income. Let's see. A little bit of good news. 96% of all farms in the United States are still family owned. The other 4% are owned by large corporations, but I'm glad to see that 96% are still owned by family farms. Let's see. So Ashtabula County is a huge county. 2017, just over 88,000 acres were harvested cropland, and that's an actual decrease from 2012 when we had over 100,000 acres. I look at that and I see that with the prices where they're at, and the amount of farms there are, less farmers are trying to grow those large acreage crops like corn and soybeans and hay, and they're switching to higher value crops that can be grown on a smaller amount of acres is a large part of that. So that's a little bit of insight from the 2017 USDA census. And I guess that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. You know, it's interesting to see there's, you think of agribusiness as a sector that doesn't see change the way that other industries do. But certainly we see what I'll characterize as sort of the industrialization of farming with respect to the size, right? And they're trying to gain economies of scale there to squeeze every efficiency and every opportunity to have a positive impact on revenue there. So it's a very changing industry that we're seeing in terms of technological changes, but a shifting in terms of the scale of that farming. So the small farmers still exist. There are quite a few here in our county, but it's a challenging environment that they face. So, but one that I think with the efforts of OSU Extension and others, we're trying to help that be an environment in which they can succeed. So. Thank you for the work that you're doing. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Paul Bellino, who I believe needs no introduction. So I will pass it on to you and let you know that, right, we have 15 minutes left, so leave us enough time for some Q&A.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for the gentle encouragement. So good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak, despite the heaviness, obviously, in the area. So it's a pleasure to follow a fellow graduate of The Ohio State University, and also a warm feeling to be here with a fellow Warren G. Harding graduate, Mr. Rubicic, who was a young teacher when I was a freshman. When I was a freshman at Warren G. Harding High School 31 years ago. So you must have that was your first day, it must have been. Okay. Let's see if this works. Oh, that's me. It's working. So, okay, that's me, as if you didn't know. But I didn't know why I put that slide on there, but now I realize I'm glad I did, because there's this huge chasm between me and everybody else in the room. So now you can see who I am. And I'm not sure how this is working. And I'm clicking everything I can click. And now it's off.
I taught technology, and Paul was one of my students.
So, we're coming back. So the slide that you were going to see as we do this is our mission statement at Community Counseling Center, which is a brief one and a meaningful one to us. And our mission at Community Counseling Center is that we're a nonprofit behavioral health provider focused on engaging the community in recovery. And if you remember anything from that mission statement, and the intention of that mission statement is to highlight the word engagement, because the word engagement is, we're a slide back maybe? Well, that's me. Okay.
Don't move the mouse, just try clicking. That's what happened before.
Okay. And engagement describes all that we do at Community Counseling Center and all that we aspire to be. Engagement is the hallmark of our corporate culture and the touchstone of our clinical philosophy of care. Okay, just a little about Community Counseling Center. We are a comprehensive provider of mental health and substance use disorder treatment. That includes counseling, psychiatric medication management, case management, support employment, intensive outpatient treatment, medication-assisted treatment, so on and so forth, too many to name right now. We serve approximately 4,000 clients a year across our array of services. An annual operating budget of $6 million, employing almost 100 staff at this point in time. Just to let you know a little bit about our growth, those numbers represent a 31% growth in gross revenue over the past 5 years and a 39% increase in number of employees in the past 5 years. And frankly, we could hire a dozen staff today if we could get the number of resumes and applications in place. So definitely a workforce issue for us and across the county and across the state, really, in behavioral health. That's us. That's our main entrance into Donahoe Center, where we've been for over 31 years. We've been Community Counseling Center since 1986 has been our name through a merger. And that's where we've been for a long time. In case you get lost, that's our address. Here, 2 years ago now, almost, we have opened up a satellite office in Conneaut. So if you're driving down Main Street, you'll see us there. There's the, almost. We've stalled. Oh, there it is. There's our address in Conneaut. And I'm glad our legal counsel, Stu Cordell, is in the room now. While I can't give much detail, we have a soon-to-be-announced new satellite office opening in Geneva. We are literally hours away from that official announcement, but we will have an office opened hopefully in the first quarter of the next fiscal year, so July-ish. We will have a new satellite office opened in Geneva. Also in Geneva, we have a house that was donated to us in 2016. We are finally putting that to good use, and we will have recovery housing in that location for mothers, pregnant women, and mothers of infants suffering from opiate use disorders will be living in that house, up to 6 residents. So we're excited for that to happen. A lot more official stuff to happen with that in the weeks to come. Almost. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about issues facing the county. Looking at our county suicide numbers, 2 issues when I thought about preparing this presentation came to mind, and that is that unfortunately suicide and overdose deaths. And I'm going to go through some of those statistics and what we're doing about that in the county. So you see our numbers are relatively flat from the years 2016 to 2018, but 23, 22, 21, that's all too many. The goal is 0, and I know that might seem like a stretch, but the reality is 0 suicide is the movement across the country, and 0 suicide is our goal here in the county. Seems every 4 or 5 clicks it moves. Oops. Okay. So the total number of completed suicides has remained unchanged, like I said, but the reality is those numbers would be down if we were just calculating adult suicide completions. The unfortunate situation that we're in the county now is that our youth suicides are on the increase, and that is why our numbers have sustained at that level. So Ashtabula is not an anomaly in that youth suicide trend. That is a national epidemic across the country, definitely in our state of Ohio. So all these statistics that I'll share with you were derived from the Ashtabula County Mental Health and Recovery Services Board, and Marion Walton, the executive director there, provides excellent leadership and is addressing these problems day in and day out. And I want to say a shout out and recognition to the County Mental Health Board, because the work that they're doing is really providing excellent leadership, and is you have a leader there with Miriam that sees the big picture and is also proactive in her support of all the agencies providing services. So how are we addressing this suicide issue? Well, treatment and access to care is first and foremost what we're looking to do. And in terms of specifically with our youth suicide issues, school-based services are so important. You heard John mention that. And school-based services allow us to reach students in an easier fashion, and that increases access because we're getting out of that box of only treating folks at one location in our Donahoe office. So we're stretching across the county, but being in the schools provides us a more immediate access to care. Prevention is incredibly important, promoting awareness, developing resiliency, the development of focus on protective factors, and most importantly, reducing stigma. And that is at both the county level with our Mental Health Recovery Services Board, our Prevention Coalition, and in the agencies that provide service. And I'm here to tell you about Community Counseling Center. Also in use in schools, which has a tremendous impact, is Rachel's Challenge, Botfin Life Skills, the PACS Good Behavior Game, the Boys Council and Girls Circle, which is supported by our juvenile court, and all the youth-led prevention initiatives in the county. There's a lot more that I could go into. Just offhand, we have the Mental Health Board has a race, a One Life Suicide Awareness Race, 5K in September, the Hope and Artistry event in the fall. There are a lot of community initiatives that go out to promote this cause and reduce stigma. Also, the county has a loss team that goes out for traumatic deaths and losses in the community, and also a heartbeat support group at Community Counseling Center for those who suffer those traumatic losses. Substance abuse are unintentional overdose deaths. You can see we had a climb there, but a decrease in 2018. I don't have the official 2019 numbers, but again, the goal is for 0. Even though that's a long battle. So just looking at those numbers a little more closely, September 2017 to October 2018, we had 308 non-fatal overdoses in the county, 34 fatal overdoses. But if you start to look at those numbers a little differently and from a different perspective, starting in January of 18, we're down to 192 and 20. So how are we addressing that? Well, the same methods in terms of access to treatment and our expanded continuum of care. And that includes both inpatient detox that the county board assists with folks, keeping in mind if you need a detox admission, you are going roughly 50 miles in one direction, either south to Warren, beyond that in Youngstown, or west into Lake County. We do have Glen Bay, which is a very large facility, obviously in the southern part of the county. However, those folks, that they're primarily a Medicare provider, and our folks in the county are primarily Medicaid insured. So our board has purchased some of those beds so that we can put people in on that board funding, but for folks who are primarily Medicaid insured, that's quite a distance to travel and quite a disruption in your life when you have to travel that far away. So in order to help address that, we have instituted, with cooperation with our board again, our Transitions Ambulatory Withdrawal Management Program. And what that does is allows immediate access to medication-assisted treatment. And basically, it's an outpatient detox process. So folks don't have to travel. They can be in their home environments. They can be with their support networks and get immediate entry into outpatient services. You saw those decreases in the number of overdose deaths. A big part of that is attributed to our quick response team in the county. That it is just a real quick overview. The QRT is police, fire, and the ambulances report the overdoses. Detective Cleveland at the Sheriff's Department organizes a list of visits, and an officer and a behavioral health professional go out to visit those folks after the overdose at their home, providing them with the referral information. They provide Narcan for folks so they have that safety element, and are really offering for a warm handoff or a hot handoff to treatment immediately if they are willing to go do so. This proactive measure has been a positive reinforcement for decreasing those suicide deaths. And that is a combination. The QRT is the Mental Health Board, Community Counseling Center, Lake Erie Recovery Center, and Signature Health. We also have just instituted a MOMS program at Community Counseling Center through a grant from the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and that is for mothers suffering from opiate use disorders and providing them with care coordination as well as a number of other services to help ensure better health outcomes for both mom and baby. Building Resiliency Together is our trauma-informed care initiative collaborating with our Bridges Out of Poverty initiative here in the county. The focus of this is collaboration and connection, because the opposite of addiction is connection. And you hear that both you can hear that on TED Talk from Johan Hari. You can also hear that, you heard that when Sam Quinones came and spoke last fall at the Lakeside High School. You're gonna hear many people say that, and as the focus of our group is that connection. But I think Building Resiliency Together, and actually this meets at 10 o'clock this morning. If you're not doing anything, come and follow us over there to the library. And the group is an excellent representation of all sectors in the county coming together. We have education, we have employment, we have social service, we have clergy, and that's just to name a few folks in the room. It's an active group, and the focus is on building our overall resiliency and increasing our education to trauma-informed care throughout the county. Again, it's a heaviness in the room now with what's going on in the area. The reality is we can't stop bad things from happening in our area. We can only build our own protective factors in dealing with that. And I'm looking out across the room here and seeing a number of people that are part of that committee. And I think we're not trying to reinvent the wheel with this group. We're trying to support other initiatives and banding together. And it's been an incredible success so far. And please, if you're not involved with it, we'd encourage you to come. And real quick, we have another example of community partnership and collaboration with our Dragon Empowerment Center at Ashtabula Area City. And there are some of our partners there, Community Action here in the room, Ashtabula City Schools, Community Counseling Center, Leadership, all coming together to provide needed services for kids in the school systems, promoting health care, and access to care. Well, many of you are probably aware that access to dental services is minimal. If you have Medicaid, you have to drive to Lake County in order to get those those services. Now with the Cleveland Dental Clinic on hand and then partnering with the DEC, we will have those services needed for Ashtabula City Schools, children and their families, and promoting those positive health habits moving forward, as well as other services that will be included. Please stay connected with us. You can find us on social media. And shameless plug, Recovery Breakfast at Community Counseling Center, 8 a.m. May 24th. Please come see what we're all about. And I went a little over time, but hopefully there's still some time for questions. Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, the work that community counseling does is, I can't really express how important it is in helping to raise the quality of life here in the county. So we appreciate the hard work. The reason that I am your MC today, I think, is part in that we're a supporter of the Profiles Breakfast, but two, it's tying together how all of these organizations and the work that they're doing impact economic development. And one quick story I was happening. John had mentioned artificial intelligence, and when I first learned about and started reading about artificial intelligence, I was so excited. Right? I was born with a lack of natural intelligence, so I was thinking artificial intelligence was a shot that I could get to really help me advance in my life. But I was disappointed in reading that that was not the case. But whether you talk about artificial intelligence, whether you talk about changing industries, the work that the education sector does in terms of getting our workforce ready. For us at the Growth Partnership, we're focused on that last year. Those kids coming out. It's great they're headed off to college, but for us, when we talk about workforce shortages, and I think Paul mentioned this in their own issues, is wait. So we'll stay here, and hopefully we can continue to engage in some conversation. But just getting back quickly to the comments that I wanted to raise in terms of tying this together. As I was mentioning, for us, it's focused on that last year. Those kids that are hopefully, if they're not moving off to college, they're becoming engaged in our local workforce. So for us, it's focusing on those programs that engage with young people about talking about career opportunities that afford them an opportunity to become productive members of our economy and lead them to an opportunity to have a successful life here in the county and a productive member of our community. So that's critically important. In terms of agribusiness, I think Andrew talked about, I think this number was $56 million in terms of the value of the crops. When you add in the value of the services that are tied to that industry, the purchase of equipment, the purchase of raw materials, grain, and other things that go into agricultural production, when you talk about the labor income that's associated with that industry, that's an $82 million to $83 million industry here in our county. So the value of that cannot be understated. It is one of our top 3 industries. And then with respect to the issues that Paul was talking about, I think it's critical to understand that study after study shows that if we can raise up every socioeconomic and demographic within a community, we can help people address work opportunities for people dealing with addiction, work opportunities for people dealing with mental health issues. It allows them and affords them an opportunity to become more engaged in our economy. And as an economy as a whole, we become more successful when all of those levels of our socioeconomic community are engaged in that process. So that work is critical to our long-term success and sustainability economically. That's why that work is so critical that community counseling is doing with respect to our economic future. So that's my quick tie-in. Since we have a little bit of extra time, I'll open it up to questions from the audience at this point. Yeah.
I just want to comment first. Thank Paul for your community counseling. I've been on a team that goes into Jefferson schools when there's a suicide or an emergency of some kind. It's always reassuring that your team is always there at play. And also to welcome you to our county as the extension agent, that's a great thing there. And I also wanted to thank Mr. Rubicic for such a great career in education in our county. So thank you. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Yeah.
Kevin Griffith, Small Engineering. I have a question for Andrew. Our climate is changing, and as the world gets increasingly warmer, it seems to me that there's going to be winners and losers in the agricultural business. Where do we stand in Ashtabula County as far as that goes?
Well, one benefit that we have being in Ashtabula County is we have the shortest growing season in the state of Ohio. climatologist says at Ohio State is that we might not be seeing immediate record highs every summer. The days will be getting warmer. But one thing that we are going to be seeing is the nights are going to be warmer. There's not going to be the same amount of record lows at nights. The average temperature at night is going to be increasing. And that's going to affect a lot of aspects of agriculture. I won't get too into it, but the grape industry is one that will be greatly affected by warmer temperatures at night.
Negatively or positively?
Negatively, yeah.
Okay. Other questions? No, that's it. I can think of a few that I might have, but I'll throw. So, Paul, I'll kick a question out to you. I know that there's work that you're doing with respect to helping advance opportunities for people who have backgrounds, criminal backgrounds, and advancing employment opportunities. That's certainly a challenge that many communities are facing. But I think, again, it touches on one of those things that we see from an economic development that's important to my point earlier about engaging all populations. Can you talk a little bit about that work, some of the opportunities and some of the challenges related to engaging with that population for employment opportunities?
Thanks, Greg. So, yes, we have support employment services at our agency, which are funded primarily by our Mental Health Recovery Services Board, also somewhat billed through Medicaid, as well as we do some work with Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation, which is now called Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. They don't like OOD as their nickname, but that's what it looks like. So, we have seen very good numbers with our folks in work. I think offhand there were 21 new job starts in the third quarter. I might be minimizing that number a bit. 21 job starts in the third quarter with new folks starting. I believe our continued employment is I'm under technological problem first today. Our continued employment is over 90% from quarter to quarter of these maintains jobs. So that is a trial in and of itself when we're trying to get folks into the workforce who haven't been, or increasing their employment from part-time to full-time. But we need the cooperation and collaboration and connection with employers because we're facing more and more folks that we're engaging that have backgrounds that are going to preclude them from many of the employers in the area. And as we're dealing with a workforce shortage, there's some real possibility that if we're able to relax those and realize that perhaps some HR policies can be a little too stringent and maybe resisting, maybe getting in the way of getting great folks into your employment that are being restricted due to some backgrounds legally. So one of the ways we're looking at addressing that is the more that we can have employers and HR professionals engaging with our support employment staff, the better. So we've been really out pounding the pavement trying to build those relationships. And really through that connection and those relationships, we are hoping that we'll build more familiarity. And when you see and meet and have the opportunity to engage with these potential employees, we feel that that'll turn the tide in getting our folks that we're trying to assist help in gainfully employed. You know, this is an easy program to get behind because these are not people waiting around to be on the dole. These are folks that are contributing or attempting and then in most cases successfully contributing to our economy. They're paying taxes, they're earning, and they're making what is perhaps a very scary leap over the fiscal cliff of losing their benefits and entering into the workforce benefits, which are pretty steep if you have been in the system and are receiving Medicaid benefits and other benefits. And that's a scary thing to ask somebody to say, hey, just take this gamble in your work career. So I don't know if I quite answered your question, but in short, connection with employers and building relationships is how we see as the first step in making that happen.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah.
As a follow-up to that, Paul, do you have Exactly.
So does that data exist, that the program, the supported employment program helps ameliorate that problem?
You know, we have outstanding data for the program as a whole. Now, fettering out folks with legal backgrounds and the jobs, that is something that we don't have the largest sample size compared to what we have overall as a program. But we can couple that with trends that we know from across the state, and we could also couple that with research that will show trends in recovery, and we can support that because we're also providing people. So when you're bringing on somebody in employment services, that spectrum of assistance is pretty wide, and you might have the ability to have somebody job coaching alongside that staff person and help ensuring them even getting to work every day when you're not going to have that in other employment programs. So data maybe not as robust as we would like, but we can certainly present a strong case as to why this will work out for an employer in the long run.
Great.
For Andrew, the shift, we have an increasing number of farms in Ashtabula County.
Yeah.
Some additional farmers, are they moving into specialty crops as opposed to commodity crops like soybeans and corn? And so they're focusing on, as you said, a higher value added
Yeah.
crops, such as what?
So when I talk about higher value added crops, I'm talking about greenhouse, vegetables, flowers, grapes. We have a lot of agricultural diversity in Ashtabula County, and we're very fortunate of that. That has to do with where we are in the United States and having the lake on our northern border. I mentioned that we have the shortest growing degree days in the state in central Ashtabula County, but we actually have the longest growing degree days along the lake, and that has to do with the warmth that we get from the lake that extends the growing season. So that allows us to grow greenhouse crops and grapes along the lake, whereas people in the middle of the county and southern county aren't able to grow some of those varieties of grapes.
Great. Other questions? Yeah, here on the left.
You mentioned how the education program and how proud you are of all these students who are going to these high-end colleges, which is absolutely amazing. What programs are in place to get these students to come back to Ashtabula County?
I'm glad you asked that question. If you don't mind, I'll stand up. I've been sitting too long. One of the things we talk about as superintendents is talk about brain drain. How do we get students to come back into the county? Some of the things that we talk about is getting businesses to invest in our students while they're still in high school. So, for example, looking at creating a type of a co-op program. If you're a business or a manufacturing company and you know you need engineers, we know that there are students in this county who they just know they want to be an engineer. They're going to go to Cincinnati. We know that there are people who, students are graduating, who are going to go into the financial end of things. So if you're in the business sector and you need CPAs, there are students that are graduating. Really what you need to do is get into our schools, find out who those students are, and what I would recommend is giving them a seasonal job. Like when they're juniors in high school, if that's really what they know they want to go into engineering, get them into the plants, into the manufacturing businesses as juniors. Let them emulate what's going on with other engineers within those businesses to see if that's truly what they want to do. And if they do want to go down that path, after they graduate from high school, get them in the summer again before college. Once they're in college, if they're really focused, let's say after that first or second year, and they do want to become an engineer or a CPA, bring them back and co-op with them a little bit, okay? Pay them during the summer, give them a decent wage, and have them sign a contract. Stu can work it up for you. Have them work up a contract where, for every summer that you're providing employment for them, you're going to pay maybe a semester of their schooling. But upon graduation, they have to come back and work for you for, you can say, for every summer and for every semester you're paying, you need a year's worth of service out of it. First Energy CEI does that when they put kids through the lineman program. So I think that's something that we can easily do.
Yeah, I'd just like to pick up on that point a little bit. One of the things, and I think this is a great opportunity to tie in sort of what we're learning from the education community and tying that to business that I think directly impacts this, is I had the opportunity last month or the month before to speak to the Ohio Department of Education around our mentorship program, which is a program that Growth Partnership has managed for about 17, 18 years. And what that program is you're a student, you can say, hey, I'm interested in becoming an engineer, and we'll place you with a company that allows you to shadow. One of the things that we're doing now is sort of flipping that around and saying, what is it that our companies need? What jobs do they need filled? And that could be everything from professional to non-professional positions. And then we're having students apply for those positions in a way that gets them into a paid internship opportunity during their junior and senior year. And the reason that we think that's critical is that whether you can have the potential to become a direct employee after you graduate high school, or you've built that foundational relationship that if they do go off to college, they're doing what John is talking about. They have that connection there, and we're bringing them back their freshman summer, their sophomore summer, so that they're not then looking for internship and co-op opportunities during their sophomore, junior year of college in the location where they're going to school. So those are ways that we're implementing specific programs to try to address some of those issues as well. So I saw some other hands.
Let me follow up on that. I think one of the biggest disservices that we're doing to students, we're graduating 50 to 60% of our students countywide, statewide, who really don't know what they want to do upon graduation. Personally, I believe that more of them need to go to career centers. We need to have them focused because they're floundering a little bit. They graduate, they really don't know what they're going to do. They may go out and try to find some menial jobs, but it's not a career. It's not something that's going to support them for life. Somehow we need to get parents to understand and students to understand, because there is a stigma with students going to career centers. There are students who are really focused. They know they want to go into carpentry. They know they want to go into culinary arts or small engine repairs, things like that. But we have to make sure that the kids are prepared for a workforce. And that's one of my big pet peeves, is that so many students are graduating not really knowing what they want to do. Those percentages are way too high, and somehow we need to combat that. Because think about this. You go home today and you got a leak in the sink, or you have an electrical problem. See if you can get an electrician or plumber to come out today. It's probably not going to happen.
Leak
Yeah.
in the sink and the electrical problem, you're saying we don't teach students today like we taught them before. And one of the problems I see in the way we're teaching today, I teach part-time in the welding department. About a third of my students, I have to show them how to use a tape measure to work with fractional math. And we've taken, unless you're going to the vocational school, you don't get any hands-on training typically in terms of how to change a light bulb. Right? I think we need to be looking at some of those practical skills and teaching those to students more, which would help prepare them better to go into career fields if they wanted to.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you. You wouldn't be impressed with my welding. I had to weld something a week ago. It was real ugly.
Yeah, well, and most of the employers would say, it's not so important for you to be a perfect welder, but you better be a reliable person with a good work ethic, able to pass a drug test, and be able to pass a background test. And if you can do all those things, they'll invest time with you to teach you how to weld better.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. There was a question up front here.
It kind of just got answered. So I work for Congressman Dave Joyce, and there's a big push from President Trump, members of Congress, to really focus more on the career schools, the technical schools. What are some of the numbers in Ashtabula County? My boyfriend went to ATEC, and he worked as an electrical, I do politics, I don't do electrical. But now he went back for automotive, and that background helped him tremendously in the automotive industry as well. So I'm just curious to know, what are some of the numbers of students that are going to ATEC or a career technical school in our county?
I'd almost have to ask Tina. She has a vocational background a little bit, more so with adults, but Tina may have better information than I do, and I wouldn't know what those numbers were at the career center.
I don't really know exactly the numbers right now, but I know that the high school, they have freshmen, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade at ATEC, and I do know that they have waiting lists for their classes. The adult program probably has 300 people per year going through the training, career tech training.
Yeah. Well, I think addressing that question too, and John, you may have mentioned it, that there's somewhat of a stigma sometimes around following a career education path versus saying a college preparatory path. And one of the things that we're trying to do, and this is not, we'd love feedback as to how we achieve this, is change the messaging around that, right? And change the message around what success is. Success isn't just going off to college. I mean, I just picked up my son from his freshman year in Ohio State. He has no more opportunity to be successful than somebody who stayed here and followed a career path by gaining technical skills. It's a matter of, in my opinion, sort of how hard you want to work and how hard you want to go after it. And there's nothing limiting either of those people from, quote unquote, being successful. But I think part of the challenge that we see is getting that message out there that success doesn't mean just heading off to college. It means becoming engaged and gaining skills and gaining knowledge, but that doesn't necessarily have to be through pursuing a college degree right away. So one of the things I'll sort of just make a quick comment on, again, these areas that we're talking about seem so unrelated in many ways to economic development, but again, they're not. Each of the entities, and including us at the Growth Partnership, we tend to work within our own silos and with our own expertise. But to be quite honest, we can't be successful unless they're all successful. So I think maybe Paul mentioned it in his conversation about building relationships. It's critical that we're building relationships and we're building ties amongst organizations, and not just in a way to kind of know what the other's doing, but in a way to really help that organization be successful. Because if these three gentlemen, and they're successful in the work that they're doing, that means we're going to be successful at the Growth Partnership. And I think that's a message that I can't emphasize enough, that continuing to work together and recognize that not to just be involved, but understand, how do I add value to the role that entity is doing so that they can complete their work and their mission successfully, because that's going to translate into success within my organization. And that's really important. Just a quick story, since we have a little bit of time. I don't know if some of you were at Best of the County 2 years ago, but we had Jim Tressel, who's the current president at Youngstown State, speak at that, and former Ohio State Buckeyes coach. And so if you were there, you saw that I did a little bit with him. I had my gray vest on and I had my glasses, and he came and he spoke, and we had a little laugh about that. Well, 2 weeks ago, I was at an event for the new head of Jobs Ohio, which is the statewide economic development agency, and I was down in the Youngstown area, and President Tressel was there. So we were just standing, talking. And I said, "Hey, President, how are you?" And it was clear to me after talking with him for a few minutes, and I said, Greg Myers from the Growth Partnership in Ashtabula County. He did not remember who I was, right? He did not. And I'm thinking, well, we had this little bit, we got a little joke out of it. But what I realized in that instance is that I was asking something of him, right? I was asking him to come in and contribute to our organization and speak. And he does that all the time. So it's not surprising that it took him a little bit to make that connection. And what I didn't offer in that instance, and didn't do a good enough job in my follow-up, was establishing that relationship and building that value that I could offer to him, right? It was a one-way street. And I think that's important, because oftentimes we can do that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and not build that relationship and not do what we can to offer sort of that value to the other organization, and just ask of their service. And if we help support them, again, to my point, that just helps us to be more successful. So that was an interesting aha moment for me a few weeks ago, just in that little situation. So
Greg, to add on, from a strengths-based perspective, the strength of our county here is collaboration, and hopefully that's apparent to you. If it's not, I hope you can come to see that, and that's something we need to build upon. I live in another county and commute here, and can compare work in other counties to what happens here, and the strength among at least the sectors that I work with has been collaboration and relationship building. So let's build upon that and build upon solids instead of looking at other areas where we have deficits, and build from that strengths perspective.
Right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Since we're trapped here temporarily, This is really Andrew's area of agriculture, but had a situation at the church a few years ago that was an eye-opener for me. One of my parishioners' brother had died, and he was a farmer for a long time in our county, had a pretty good-sized farm. And so his brother became his executor, and he had made his will out in the mid-'80s. And he was a farmer all his adult life. So he left what he thought was a pretty good gift to his nieces and nephews. They had no children. He left $1,000 each to his nieces and nephews. And then when he died, his farm, it turned out, he wanted to leave 10,000, I remember, to St. Paul's, which was appreciated. And then he thought, if there's any money left over, I'd like to leave it to this little church where I was baptized. So when all the things came out with his estate, his farm was worth over $1 million. And so whatever was left over was over $1 million that went to this little church. And the little church immediately began arguing with themselves over what to do with this money. So maybe it wasn't such a blessing. But the value of our land in the county, that is a good thing. We lived in Licking County near Columbus and Fairfield. And the farmers' land got so valuable that they sold off all their property to developers who put housing in around the outer belt and then went around Columbus. So we lost a bunch of farms in that way, but at least the land value. So thanks for tolerating.
Question here?
I have a question for Andrew. I was just more curious about the milk and grain prices that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no.
Well, we'll give Andrew an opportunity to answer that question really quickly since.
I'll make it a short
Yeah.
question then. I just want to hear more of an overview of how that's affecting our farmers in the county. Are they state factors, national factors, and what's being done about it locally or statewide or countrywide to help with that? Because it sounds like it's affecting our county farmers greatly, and it sounds like it's been happening for a few years.
Yeah. So, first off, I want to thank the Ashtabula County Police Department for apprehending the suspect. Yeah, so the price of milk and the price of grain right now is very, very low. The price of milk especially. When talking to David Marison, which was in my position before me, when he started about 20 years ago, we had, I believe, it was around 700 dairy farms in the county. Today we have under 30. So the dairy industry in Ashtabula County has been hit hard, throughout the years, but especially in the past couple of years, the price of milk has just been terrible, and it's been hard to make any money in the dairy industry, and that's at a national standpoint that the milk price is terrible. It's hard to make money dairy farming anywhere in the country. The grain, the corn and soybean price, partly has to do with the tariff situation that we're in right now. Hopefully that can get resolved. I've been keeping up on the news and crossing my fingers that we can reach a deal with some of these different countries to invigorate that price a little bit. But realistically, the prices have been declining, in the past 20 years, and the price of inputs, fertilizers, seed, genetics, and all that have been increasing. So the margin in farming has been decreasing significantly every year, and that's really the main issue. Somewhere that I see Ashtabula County going, and maybe a market that we can explore is diversified agriculture. There's more money right now in some of the alternative crops that I mentioned before, grapes, vegetable crops, local foods, miscanthus, stuff like that, that we already, I think, do the best job out of the state of Ohio in. So exploring those options, I think will benefit the county, and hopefully we can get some of these prices straightened out and help the farmers that want to continue to farm in the dairy industry and in the grain industry.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your being here today and for your engagement and your patience. We appreciate it very much. I'd like to offer one last thank you and round of applause for our panelists. Very good. Again, thanks for being here. Be safe and enjoy the day.
Well, that's a first.
Interesting.
Speaking to a lockdown room.